because once you can see it and once you can click it, it means you're resonating at that level of intellect, right? No longer at the level of consumptive intellect, but at the level of infinite being intellect, the infinite source energy within, as opposed to the consuming without, right? Right, hello everybody, King of the Zenpire here. Just thought I'd come on and give you a quick little breakdown of the difference between the Flower of Life and the Lotus of Life, or the Krystal Lotus, or the Crystal Flower, or whatever you want to call it. These are two very different geometries, however they are constructed from similar sort of bases, right? Online you see a lot of people calling this one the Flower of Death and this one the True Flower of Life, the Lotus of Life, and I'm just going to sort of break down whether I agree with that or not and give you some points about each one, okay? So first of all, we'll take a look at the Flower of Life. As we can see here, this is the one that is often seen online. It is the Flower of Life that has a circle going around it. I'll put an image up on screen if you would like to see that. As you can see from this little highlighted red bit, it is fragmented, meaning that the whole piece is not there, it is not holistic. In order to fit it inside the circle, we need to remove that outer portion, meaning that it does not represent the infinite unity consciousness that is. So that is one defect. It is incomplete geometry. Now, online you also see the other version of the Flower of Life, which is the uncropped version without the outside circle. And you may think this could solve the problem, but actually when we don't have the outside circle and we keep in the exterior ring, what you see here is that it's incomplete also. The exterior rings don't have the internal petal design. In this way it is incomplete, and in order to attempt to complete itself, we'll have to expand the flower wider, right? If we wanted to fill in the exterior section, what we would do is we would make 3 more rings, but then we run into the same problem. So in this way the design is perpetually incomplete, and in this way it is consumptive, right? Its being perpetually incomplete means that it, in order to sustain itself, it needs to take additional input, and therefore it does not represent infinite unified consciousness. Now, on the other hand, the Lotus of Life, sovereign and complete. It represents the infinite, the unified and the eternal. It is self-sustaining geometry in that it is complete as it is, right? There's no possible way to expand it, nor does it need any expansion. It is complete as is, and therefore there's nothing more to say, right? It just is. They're both constructed from similar base geometry, right? You have the middle circle and then the exterior circles around. But the Flower of Life, it has 6 circles around, which means there's a 60-degree angle between each sort of leaf, I suppose you would say. And due to this, it creates a pattern that is not harmonic. Energy sort of flows out, but it cannot flow back inwards. Whereas this one, where we have the 12 rings on the outside, it is perfectly interlaced. Energy can flow out and in more freely, and therefore it represents the infinite. Okay, so just to touch up on that quickly, I've made a little diagram. This is now a few days later. I've come up with this beautiful little diagram here. It shows the way that energy flows through the Flower of Life matrix. The problem with the Flower of Life matrix is that at each point in which there is an intersection where two circles or multiple circles coincide, the angle from which energy will flow through one path into the intersection is met with two preceding angles or two preceding exit points which the energy can flow through equally. The energy is able to split through these two paths because the resistance between both is the same. I'll put a close-up image of that to make it a bit more clear. What this means is that as the energy goes round the pattern or the circle, at each intersection 50% of the energy is drained off. 50% of the energy goes and begins to leave the system. And this happens systematically throughout the whole grid. As the circle goes around, you lose 50% here, which is siphoned off, 50% here, which is siphoned off, 50% here, which is siphoned off, in a repeating fashion. In this way, it drains energy. It does not bring energy back to the center like the Lotus of Life does. With the Lotus of Life, there is no intersection in which the energy could go any other way but with the way that it was going. You see, at each intersection there is no sort of other path it can take other than continuing on with the circle and returning back to the center. In this way, this represents the infinite energy, and this represents the draining, the dependence, the need, not infinite source energy. So just to clarify that. Expanded, it is unified and complete, and in and of itself. So what does that have for the sort of real world implications? Well, the Flower of Life exists on the plane of duality. It exists on the plane of consumption, the need to consume to sustain. Now, there is an argument to be made that it could be beneficial for those who are still living in a dualistic sort of ideology, right? It can potentially promote interconnectedness and unity. However, we must also realize that this promotion of interconnectedness and unity is also what makes it binding, right? That it creates a need to be interconnected, a need, and need is not the infinite eternal. This is needless, for it just is. It represents the true infinite source energy. So if you've watched this video, I would suggest it's probably time for you to ditch the Flower of Life and move on to the Lotus of Life. There will still be people that are resonating with the Flower of Life, and that's completely okay. Everybody's at a different sort of path on their spiritual journey. Everybody's at a different point. I only recently came into this knowledge maybe a week or so ago, since I've done quite a bit of research, and really what happens is when it clicks, you really sort of understand it, and it really makes a great breakthrough in one's life. Because once you can see it and once you can click it, it means you're resonating at that level of intellect, right? No longer at the level of consumptive intellect, but at the level of infinite being intellect, the infinite source energy within, as opposed to the consuming without, right? So yeah, that's just a quick little breakdown. I hope you enjoyed this little video. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. The King of the Zenpire. Peace be with you.
You can do it, you can do it. You can do it, you can do it. You can do it, you can do it.